In Season 4, Episode 2 of For All Mankind, Danielle Poole and the Mars team safely land on the Red Planet. Miles Dale was visibly excited by the possibilities that the new planet offered, but he soon figured out that life on Mars was no cakewalk. There was a clear divide between the workers and the astronauts, and this dynamic is going to play a decisive role in Season 4 of For All Mankind. We also saw a glimpse of the resistance that Danielle will face if she goes against Ed's decision. He has been living on the Red Planet for 8 years and has his own way of getting things done. Meanwhile, the past continues to haunt Aleda, and she soon finds out that she is not the only one suffering at NASA. Miles had great expectations from his new place of employment. He left his old job in the hopes of something more stable with good pay, but the reality was quite different from the one he was promised. He was employed by Helios to work as a fuel tech, but instead, upon arriving at Happy Valley, he learned that there was no requirement for the job anymore, and he had to work maintenance. The failure of the asteroid mission resulted in a change of plan, but Miles was not ready to accept it. At the same time, he had no choice but to comply with what he was offered. There was no view below ground level, and a sense of disappointment started to set in as Miles settled into the room he had to stay in for the next 2 years. He only had a bunk bed of his own, and he shared the room with 4 other crew members. Miles was absolutely devastated when the videos sent from his home failed to load. He traveled so far knowing that he would have access to the videos of his family, but even that did not work out. We soon find out that life in Happy Valley is not the same for everyone. While the videos sent by Miles' family lagged, Danielle faced no problem with the connectivity. She had a clear view of the outside from her room, unlike Miles, who had to settle for a Mars poster. Danielle had a room of her own, whereas the workers had only their bunk beds. The floor Danielle lived on accommodated her every need and more, but the story was not the same at the underground level. The food and beverages served to those on the ground floor were of far superior quality than the ones that the workers received. Even on the new planet, class differences found their way. Miles realized how different the two worlds were when he was called to the ground floor for a maintenance job. He watched an astronaut enjoy videos of his family while Miles still had no access. The lives of the astronauts, cosmonauts, scientists, and pilots were completely different from the lives of the workers living at Happy Valley. Tom Parker's death was an example of how insignificant the workers on the Red Planet were. He, too, lost his life on the asteroid mission, yet it was cosmonaut Grigory Kuznetsov that everyone spoke about. Miles did not shy away from expressing his disappointment when he learned about the pay cuts. He traveled to Mars in the hopes of earning bonuses, but instead, he was making less than he used to on Earth. Ed heard Miles complain, and he reminded him that it was never meant to be easy living on a planet with a challenging environment, and for that, everyone had to accept certain personal losses. The answer was not what Miles had hoped for. We can already anticipate an uprising in For All Mankind Season 4, and Miles Dale will possibly play an important role in it. It did not take Danielle Poole much time to notice the lack of parity, and she decided to discuss it with Ed Baldwin. But Ed believed one had to make sacrifices to live on Mars. During their initial visits, they, too, had to spend tough days on the planet, and he did not think that the experience of living in space was meant to be comforting. Ed also did not seem to have respect for the workers since their goal was to earn money, whereas, in the past, he and his fellow astronauts had risked their lives for their nation. Their jobs were a lot more respectful, whereas the ones living underground were simply helping them get past minor difficulties. But Danielle was not the same as Ed. She immediately spotted the problem areas, and she was not hesitant to bring them to light. She was aware of the bandwidth issue and how difficult it was for the crew to live without any contact with their families. Ed believed there was no solution to the problem because repairing it involved risk. But Danielle was not ready to take no for an answer. She ordered Ed to come up with a solution with his team of engineers, and she was ready to take the risk that it involved. The repair work went smoothly, even though Ed doubted Danielle at every step of the process. This goes on to show that Danielle will be bringing about significant changes in Happy Valley, and Ed Baldwin might not be too happy about it. After taking a long break from her job, Aleda returned to NASA, but soon after stepping in, she realized that maybe she was not yet ready to go back to work. The haunting memories of the blast continued to traumatize her. With Eli Hobson constantly commenting on her mental health and the overall impact of the past, Aleda decided on the spot that she wanted to quit. After leaving Hobson's office, Aleda went to grab a drink at the bar. She noticed Kelly Baldwin seated in a corner, and she walked up to her. Kelly, too, was going through a rough phase. She had invested all her time and energy into developing a technology that would help find life on Mars, and she was ready for its implementation, but Eli Hudson pulled back the project. The failure of the asteroid capture program resulted in a lack of funds, and Kelly's project was put to a halt. The indefinite delay in her robotics research had a devastating impact on Kelly. Meanwhile, Aleda did not know what she wanted to do after quitting her job. She could not return home to tell her husband that she had lost their safety net, but at the same time, she knew it was impossible to work at NASA. Aleda never stopped thinking about Margot, and after losing her to the blast, she felt all the